Welcome back. If you haven't seen the Welcome to FLL video yet, start there. It covers the big picture of the whole program. Today, we're going deep on one specific piece, the Innovation Project. So, what exactly is the Innovation Project? Well, every season, FLL gives every team in the world the same prompt, a real world theme to explore. And your job as a team is to find a problem connected to that theme, research it thoroughly, design a solution, build and test a prototype, and get feedback from real experts along the way, and then present everything you learned to a panel of judges. That's the whole process: problem, research, solution, prototype, expert feedback, presentation. Now, here's something I want to be very clear about. Officially, the innovation project is 25% of your overall score, one of four judge areas. But in my experience, mentoring and participating in FLL, this project, combined with how well you present it, is one of the most valuable parts of the entire program. It teaches real research skills, critical thinking, how to talk to actual experts in the field, engineering design, teamwork, public speaking, and maybe most importantly, how to handle feedback and keep improving. As well as teaching these skills, I have found a good presentation and project can help impress the judges and very well and give a better chance for your Champions Award during competition. So let's take a step back and look at the general formula we use for the innovation project. Think of it like any business or research project. There are five main steps: finding your idea, researching your solution, consulting with experts, build and iterate your prototype, validating your solution through a survey or testing it, and finally, the presentation for your project. We're going to come back to this exact slide a few times today, so you always know where we are. We're going to go deeply into step one, finding your idea, because getting that right makes everything else a lot easier. Step one is to find your idea. This is where teams should be spending a lot of their time because a strong, well researched idea makes life way easier in following steps. You'll find that so many different ideas will come up and so many will be shut down. But it's important to keep track of your timeline so you actually start working on your prototype and your project at the right time so you don't end up not being able to have something for your competition. So for your idea, you typically want to start with your season's prompt, then go looking for a real problem connected to it. Something that's actually happening in your community or even the world, not something hypothetical. Also make sure that it isn't too vague or broad or unachievable, such as like solving global warming or cancer. Push past the first idea that comes to mind because that's usually the idea that every other team will have, and that's not very innovative or unique. Ask yourselves who is affected by this problem and how bad, and to see if this is actually an issue with a large impact. Again, don't rush this step as it is extremely important. Once you have a problem, it's time to research it properly, and that means using good sources. I'm sure all of you have heard this before, but you need to have good sources. Look for research papers and studies, not just blog posts and forum threads. When you find a paper, a good idea is to start by reading the abstract, and that's a short summary at the top, so you can quickly tell if it's relevant before you spend time reading the whole thing. You also want to cross check important facts across more than one source, and build a habit of keeping a running list of every single source that you have, and not scrambling to find it later. You'll need to cite every single source that you have, both in your presentation and your project resources. So you're going to need to keep track of everything. Once you understand the problem, the next question is, has anyone already tried to solve this? Search for existing products, patents, and projects that address the same problem. A good thing to do is to look into some keywords surrounding your problem and put them into Google and Google Patents. Look closely at what they do well, what they don't, and specifically why the problem is still not fully solved. This step is what helps make your solution as innovative and unique as possible. For every existing solution you find, your team needs to make a call. If it already fully solves the problem, that specific idea is probably taken. So just mark it down and move on to your next idea. There's no point in wasting your time on solving an issue that is already solved. But if it's close and just incomplete, or it just doesn't have a current solution, that's actually a great sign. It means you found a real gap, a real niche target where you can go for. Figure out exactly what that gap is, why that gap exists, and brainstorm an idea to solve that issue. Make sure you're very clear on why your idea is better and what problem it specifically solves. Then write that improvement down in plain language, 1 or 2 sentences your whole team agrees on. Of course, you could have already thought of an idea when you research your problem. In that case, see if any current solutions have overlap with your idea. And again, find the gaps in the current solution and make sure your solution fixes those. Remember to put every idea you seriously consider into a shared spreadsheet. A Google Sheet works great. For each one, log the problem, any existing solutions you found, your proposed twist to the solution, or your innovative solution by itself, and your team's notes on why it does or doesn't seem like worth pursuing. You can add up point tallies for feasibility, impact, and so forth. This becomes your idea log. It's often what judges want to see, a real evidence that you explored a whole large amount of ideas instead of just going with the first idea you had. You need to keep this to show the judges either during your presentation or when they ask about it. Give yourselves a good amount of time before locking a final idea in. About a month is typical for most teams, but still remember to set hard deadlines so it doesn't drag on for too long. When you do finalize, here's a good test. Every single team member should be able to explain in 1 sentence what problem you're solving and why your solution is worth buying and building. If anyone on your team can't say that sentence, then you're not ready to finalize the idea. This is important so that in Q&A, if anyone is called on for a question, they can all answer it. Once step 1 is done, everyone can say that 1 sentence. It's time to move on through the rest of the formula, researching your solution and consulting experts, building and iterating your prototype, validating it, and presenting your project. So this is this year's specific prompt. This year's challenge is to identify a problem that puts biodiversity at risk and to design an innovative solution that can help. So, in other words, find an issue that puts biodiversity at risk and solve it. Now, feel free to pause the video and, based off of what we talked about in the previous slides, to think and discuss among yourselves what you have thought about this prompt, right off the bat. Now that you have started discussing some ideas, here I've provided some starter problems for inspiration. Notice how none of them are so vague as to not be able to determine the specific aspect that is putting biodiversity at risk. And they aren't the most insane issues that are impossible for us as students to solve. When coming up with your own idea, try to do something like this. The steps after getting your idea are also important. First, you need to find out more about your solution and consult subject matter experts to improve on your idea. This is extremely important as it is something that judges will look forward to. This year, consult experts in the biology field and narrow down to people specializing in the solution you created. For example, if you're solving something related to marine pollution, it would be smart to contact a marine biologist, present your idea to them, and ask for feedback on what to improve and what they think of the idea overall. This feedback should be recorded so that you can discuss this in judging sessions. Remember to take into account the suggestions they gave and make sure to incorporate at least 1 or 2 to show your iteration process. Around the same time as this, you'll be building and iterating your solution and prototype. You'll need to figure out the inner workings of your idea. Your idea itself doesn't have to be high-tech or even related to robotics. As long as it solves the issue that you're attempting to solve, it works. And you can explain it well. As long as it has that, it is an amazing, innovative solution. When building out your prototype, try to make it tangible so that the judges can interact with it. This will have the best impact on the judges. Also remember to keep track of all the iterations and changes in your idea or prototype as you design it and possibly organize it in a flowchart. Next, you need to validate your solution. Send out a survey, test your prototype with your target audience, or worst case, if you can't do either of those, just show your final product to another subject matter expert. This is very important to show that your solution actually works and you went out to test it. The final step is to put together a presentation and to present your project to the judges. You usually would have a poster board as well as a slide deck or handheld board during your presentation. To help you with the process, we created a template for your slide deck. It walks you through each step of your presentation and what to explain and when. For your poster board, you can design it yourself, following the same idea as the slide. In the next couple minutes, I will be walking you through the template. To start your presentations, you should state your team name and team number. From there, you should dive straight into your presentation. To start, you need to have a hook. In FLL, usually teams use some sort of skit or story. This shouldn't take that long, maybe 10 to 15 seconds. That just makes it interesting and shows some of your passion for your project. Some sort some sort of your target market struggling with a problem, then your team comes in to help them is a good way to do it. Then they can cleanly merge into the problem statement, where they can say something like, "You aren't struggling alone with this issue," and continue with some statistics of the problem. Your problem statement should include some good statistics that you researched, while being concise and summarizing your problem well. Continue to explain why this problem matters. Think of it like a statistic showing the significance of the issue, like X% of students suffer with this disease, and so on. After the problem has been introduced, say a one or two liner explaining the gist of your idea and how it solves your problem. Don't go too deep into how it works yet. Think of it as a high level explanation. The next step is where you go in depth into the inner workings, especially how your prototype works. Go through how it works step by step, what each step does, and why it is necessary for solving the issue. From there, you'll be describing the existing solutions. Probably explain two or three existing solutions with one sentence for each. Then explain how your product is better or solves the problem better than the ones described. This is really important to show you have thoroughly done your research. And in the next two slides, you'll be describing the experts you talked to, what they spoke to you about, and finally, what suggestions did you implement into your idea. You may not have enough time to go through every single expert, so just go through the ones that have the most impact on your project. Next up is explaining your iteration process. It is optional to have this during your presentation, but you should still have the slide ready so you can discuss it in Q&A when they ask something about design process. Here you should just make a flow chart with each of your iterations and explain them well. Then you explain how you validated your solution, as we talked about earlier, whether it be a survey or an in-person testing of your prototype. Explain what you did and what people thought about the idea here. Finally, explain some next steps, like patenting your project, creating financial projections, or other project-specific steps you would like to take if you advance. And there you go. You have a finished innovation project presentation. This template is meant to make your life easier when it is time for you to create a presentation. The idea is you don't put large amounts of text on the slides, mainly images, and the students explain more in speaking than in visuals. This will be put in the description for download and use. Here is a rubric for the innovation presentation. It mostly includes what I've already discussed, but it is here for reference. A good exercise for you guys to do to understand it better is to watch some sample innovation projects. I've put the links in the description below, and is a good exercise to grade them based off of the rubric. Next time, we're moving from the innovation project to the robot itself, how to plan, design, and build a robot that can actually complete your missions. After that, we'll cover programming, growing your team's core values, what to display at competition, and finally, how to present all of it with real confidence. That's it for today. Go find your idea, research it properly, and don't be afraid to spend real time on step one. It's worth it. Check the description for a link to the innovation project presentation template, and I'll see you in the next video.